Okay.
Thank you.
But yeah, so they'll be
So
different.
Ben is giving an overview to Suzanne. And Suzanne, do you understand what an ICO is now?
Yes, I do, and I'm gonna go. He gave me a few things. I'll go read.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah.
Get more. Yeah.
So
Some
Ben,
people
tell
are-
us about your coin. How does that work?
Yeah, sure.
And I want him to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're doing right now is we're doing an ICO, and we have a token, and our token is a utility token, which works on the BitPlus network. So there are two different apps that run on the BitPlus network, and these apps are essentially powered by the BitPlus token. Okay, so what tokens allow us to do is to kind of create ecosystems to incentivize people on the network, because cryptocurrencies are taking hold, and there's definitely a lot of user adoption. So like, for example, we have a channel partner, a woman who sells our point of sale system, and she's selling it the old-fashioned way. She doesn't mention anything about cryptocurrency. She's been in the merchant processing industry a long time. She bought Bitcoin 2 years ago, and she's just an average person. I know so many average people that own Bitcoin, but so we see a lot of user adoption. People own cryptocurrency. We see a lot of media attention out there every day. Every day, you see a new article in the newspaper which talks about something related to crypto. I was at my girlfriend's host parents' house, and the headline, I think they had like Forbes magazine or one of those Bloombergers. Anyway, the headline was about cryptocurrency. So every day we see more news in the media. We're hearing about this stuff all the time, but why are merchants accepting it? And you would think, that merchants would love this stuff. They accept credit cards. So all this stuff, it would, if I was a merchant and every month I look at my merchant statement, I look at all the fees that I pay to the processing companies that process my credit card transactions, it might make me a little bit sick. So you would think that, if I found out about this technology, that I would love it, and I would adopt it. But what's happened is that that hasn't been the case. Merchants are very slow to adopt this technology. And one of the reasons is because of how busy merchants are. They're so busy. If you're running this restaurant that we're eating at and your employee doesn't show up for work, you might be the guy doing the job. That's the reality of running a business. So what we're doing is we're an IC. We're a company that's doing an ICO.
You have to explain this to me because I don't understand it.
That's okay.
So he doesn't understand it. So
He doesn't understand.
So you have to go slow.
I already
Alright.
talked with
But let him.
3
let him
hours
try
or
again.
4 hours.
On this subject,
Yes.
you still didn't understand it, dude.
I don't think we've ever
I
spoken
guess
about
in
this subject.
case
We
somebody's-
did.
About ICOs?
Bitcoin.
Oh, Bitcoin. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
A
Yeah.
long.
So that's the
But
interesting
this is a
thing.
different
So,
thing.
ICOs
This
are
is not
different.
Bitcoin. This is not
ICOs are
Bitcoin.
different, but that is a problem, right?
The goal here is I
so-
want to help him.
Yeah.
I want to take advantage of what he knows, and I want him to take advantage of what I know.
Yeah.
And at the same time, open my network, which is now so many people, to be able to leverage my network, and then take advantage of again him and me.
Sure.
Right? So the
Yeah.
people who know me should be able to take advantage of
Yeah,
me and
absolutely.
you through this ICO. And how do we
Sure.
do it? I have no idea.
Exactly. Well,
So we have to figure it
one
out.
way to do it. Okay, so there are two ways to. If you want to, let's just get to the bottom line. Okay, and there are people you could talk to. Many people who are referring us merchants. We have a lot of merchants that are coming on board on our platform, and one
We're
of the
talking
wa-
about two different things.
yeah, we're talking about two different things. Okay?
One is to create a new
Yeah.
coin
exactly.
for our biradari, for our family of followers, and then another thing is what you're doing. We're trying to
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. So first you
Absolutely.
explain your thing,
Yeah.
and then
We can talk about that,
ये बड़ा है.
So in this.
But you can understand this. It's really easy. I can do that.
Okay, so
can
yeah, I
hold
think
that.
maybe I should talk a little bit about crypto for Kamal because
I can understand it. Cryptography
yeah,
is used
yeah,
to create by a machine, a specific machine, which are very slow, and whenever they finish, they get a cryptography, and it's equal to some worth of money, right? Now, from ICO, you are saying that
ICO. So first you need to understand what is blockchain.
Yeah.
Then you understand
No,
what is
I have one
Bitcoin.
question.
yeah, sure.
And then ICOs. Three different things.
there are two blockchains going on. One is with your cryptography, another some data type chain is also going on.
Yeah, so the
They both
technology.
are different or the same thing?
So blockchain technology just refers to the ledger, and Bitcoin is the first application of blockchain technology, and it came about in 2008. Okay, so when Bitcoin came about, the Bitcoin blockchain was the first blockchain. Okay, but since Bitcoin has come into existence, and because you understand, just like we all do open source software, that anybody could make copy it. So since Bitcoin has come out, there's other coins that have different innovations. There's other blockchains that are not related to money. You could have a blockchain that's storing medical records or something like that. It's just a form of a database. But just because not all blockchains are useful, so there's not always a use case for a blockchain, right? An SQL database may be perfectly fine for storing it in a database. There has to be a legitimate reason why you want it to be public. So, for example, maybe you live in a country where there might be a lot of corruption, right? And you might not trust a centralized ledger that's privately storing data. But when you do it on a blockchain, it's audible. It's people can scrutinize it. It's distributed, so meaning it never goes away.
You want another
just
try?
like
I would take another one. You don't want? Suzanne, you want to try?
you know how BitTorrent works, right? So with BitTorrent, the reason why BitTorrent exists is because first we had Napster, right? And Napster was a centralized service for sharing files. And then all of a sudden Napster, gets shut down. They come in, they take the servers, and they say you're gone. So what happens? Somebody comes up with a solution, and the solution was BitTorrent, right? So with BitTorrent, the files aren't stored in a central server. It's a distributed system that all these nodes on the network, right? So we understand how BitTorrent works, and we know that BitTorrent hasn't gone away. So this guy Satoshi, we don't know if it's a guy or if it's a group of people, in 2008 invented Bitcoin, and it's basically like BitTorrent, but for a ledger, to keep track of who has what. And that's all money has ever been. And it's kind of funny because we don't really understand a lot about money because we're so used to living in a world where the state controls all the money. So it's kind of very foreign to us. But in the past, before there was government money, there was gold and silver. And gold and silver is just a ledger, right? It's scarce. We know that there's only so much. It has to come out of the ground, so there's a cost to get the gold and silver out of the ground. And it's a way for people to keep track of who has what, right? And the reason why gold and silver exist is because before that they used all sorts of ledgers. Like some tribes would use beads, or some tribes would use wampum shell, like all different types of ways of storing just a ledger. That's all it is a ledger. But what happened was that
Do you understand what that means? What the ledger?
So as the tribes would trade for each other, let's just say one tribe is using beads and another tribe uses shells. I don't. How do we trade with each other? Because that ledger is so limited. So then gold and silver became the best ledger, and gold and silver was money for the longest time before governments kind of monopolized it. And what they do is by monopolizing the money, they kind of politicize it, because now there's a class of people who have access to their the kind of like the people who print the money. The banking class. And these people can give loans, to people who they're well connected to. There's all this. No, I'm okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take this home. But we don't want to have a society where there's a class of people, who have the ability to inflate the money supply, right? And they say that they do this in the best interest of everybody, but we know that that's not always the case. So when Bitcoin came into existence, it was just put out there in the public. It's open source. So Satoshi said, here, use it if you want. Nobody has to use it. And people just started using it. And then eventually there was some people on the internet, some geeky people that were playing around, kind of like what Rayhan and Suzanne were doing in the early days of the internet, and they were having fun. And they decided to buy some pizzas. And I believe that it happened, I'm not 100% sure, I think it was in Jacksonville, but anyway, the location is not important, but someone sent Bitcoin to somebody. At the time now, it was thousands of Bitcoin. I don't know the exact amount, but it was a lot of Bitcoin. And now, the same value of those pizzas was millions of dollars. But it's really interesting that was one of the first Bitcoin transactions. So it had to take some people who believed in it. There have to be people who looked at this thing and said, this could actually work. And, that's when Satoshi created Bitcoin, he obviously understood, a lot about money. He obviously understood a lot about economics, but he was also a coder. And people say that he wasn't necessarily the best coder, but he was, because he had these unique skills, he was able to come up with something that was very different than anything that anybody had ever seen. Nowadays, today the Bitcoin code looks very different than what it looked like back then because it's improved upon, and there's many different iterations of the protocol. But Satoshi disappeared, and nobody knows who Satoshi is. Satoshi went away, and he did this, or this group of people did this for a reason. They wanted to prove that the system can just run on its own without human intervention. So that's what's so cool about cryptocurrency is that it's an idea to be a part of something that could potentially be bigger than or as big as the internet itself, like an internet for money, basically. So like what the internet has done, like the fact that we're having this video chat and people in your town could watch this chat in Pakistan. But let's just say they wanted to send $1 or a small amount of money, from Pakistan to the U.S. Like there's this political situation where everybody, you may not have a PayPal account because you were born in that country. So the point is that with cryptocurrency, now we can communicate with each other. We can see each other, but we can also value directly from one person to another without having to like PayPal or having to depend upon Citibank or JP Morgan and all these people who aren't very liked by the most people don't like bankers.
So what happens when I think that on the back side you don't have any record who's giving which money to whom. So that will create a misuse of your money.
It's very interesting. So there was once a time in the United States where you could have your money in an account that didn't even have a name in it. You could have your money. There was a time in this country.
Still in Switzerland, you can still do it.
Yeah, in Switzerland, there are people who have,
still do it. Right?
Yeah.
That's what a Swiss bank is.
Exactly,
famous
but
for.
why should it only be for the elites that could travel to Switzerland that have a Swiss bank account?
So Alex asked, have you found a way to stifle or control the volatility? Merchants are wary of accepting a currency with high volatility.
And that's what the BitPlus token is about. And the BitPlus token, some people may criticize it because it is somewhat centralized in the sense that we're the BitPlus company and we issue these tokens. It's decentralized in the sense that it runs on the Ethereum blockchain. And it's everyone knows how many tokens are out there, how the system works, but we set a redemption rate on the BitPlus token. So it's not going to have the same volatility issue as Bitcoin. But if you look at Bitcoin,
what does volatility mean, by the way?
Volatility means like it goes up a lot and then it goes down a lot. And then it goes back up. Yeah, fluctuation, which is for merchants. And if merchants want to accept Bitcoin on our point of sale, we also have a BitPay plugin. And BitPay is a great solution for merchants. They've been around for a long time. They're one of the first Bitcoin companies, and they're venture-funded, very well-run organization. But BitPay lets you take Bitcoin without the volatility. So meaning, let's just say you're a merchant, you got to pay your suppliers in US dollars or euros. With BitPay, you can set a percentage of your sales to settle in the fiat currency, and they lock the rate in. So when the sale happens, it's immediately sold, and you get paid exactly what you were expecting. So there are solutions to deal with the volatility, and yes, it is a new world. So Bitcoin may not be the answer for every problem.
You were explaining about ICO.
ICO.
So do you understand what blockchain is now?
Yep.
You sure?
Yeah.
No questions. Okay. Now, do you have any question about blockchain?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So
now what is an ICO?
ICO.
Yeah. So obviously we now we were talking about Bitcoin and what is Bitcoin. It's really cool, but it's limited. With Bitcoin, it's not a programming language. Okay, it's just a ledger to keep track of who has what, right? And the ledger is kind of structured like digital gold. So it's really cool, and a lot of people own Bitcoin, and a lot of merchants will probably be interested in Bitcoin, but it has limitations. And one of the most interesting innovations that's out there is this project called Ethereum. And Ethereum is very different than Bitcoin. It's a platform specifically for smart contracts, okay? And a smart contract...
What is a smart contract?
Sure. A smart contract is essentially
He's glowing.
a contract.
You want me to hold it for that?
No, I feel good.
It's a contract where the rules are all basically programmed in advance. So, for example, let's just say you wanted to do a will, and in the world we live in today, we do that through lawyers, and there's a lot of contention. Sometimes when someone dies, there's fighting between relatives, and everyone will always accuse the lawyer of screwing, of cheating somebody, or whatever the case is, because there's human beings involved, and human beings make subjective decisions, and they interpret things, and not everything happens according to the wishes of the person. Well, in a smart contract, you can program a will that's written in a programming language. Ethereum has its own programming language, and
Which is called?
It's called Solidity. So exactly. So not a lot of people know, and because not a lot of people know, because there's a huge demand for smart contracts, it's called Solidity. Solidity, yeah. It's a programming language, and it's a programming language for Ethereum. So with Ethereum, you can create a will, and when you execute that smart contract, it'll automatically distribute Ethereum or digital assets or tokens that could represent property, represent real estate, represent anything. Those assets do exactly what you intended it to do. So that's a really cool use case. Another use case is ICOs, which is the most popular use case for Ethereum right now. And ICOs are kind of doing. You can do the same things that Wall Street does. So you create you can issue tokens, and the smart contract determines how many tokens are created. It determines the mechanism in which you create the tokens. So all these things can be done on the Ethereum platform. And this year, a lot of money has been raised. Hundreds of millions of dollars has been raised in ICOs.
Oh.
It's very popular. It's popular as a fundraising mechanism.
If a merchant vendor wants to use ICO, how can he start?
So first of all, you have to understand is it's not a currency. It's a smart contract.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a ICO, initial coin offering. So for example, it's not necessary. For example, you flew on an airline, right? And that airline has a points program. Or take DIDX. DIDX says every time you spend $1 with us, we'll give you a DIDX coin, right? And then against that coin, you can use whatever reason you want. That's what an ICO is. So, for example, a credit card, you have a bank. It gives you a credit card. Whenever you swipe the credit card, they give you a point. And that point, you can use it for whatever reason you can use that. Or this restaurant, they say every time you'll spend money with us, we'll give you a coin. And that coin, you can use it when you have 10,000 coins, you can buy a burger from us, right? Then you can sell those coins, buy them
So it's like a rewards. It's similar to rewards points, like the same thing. Right. Airline might accept the fact that you can do more with. They're not. It's decentralized. They're just like I send $1, to you. You can send the tokens to anyone instantaneously.
He's launching another kind of reward program where his reward program can be used for many other reasons. So even I don't understand how his reward program works.
Yeah.
But it works. And right now, because of there is a tide. Like when Dubai was going up and everybody was buying properties because everybody was thinking prices will go up. And that's what everybody thinks they're launching their coin.
Yeah, Dubai is doing a state blockchain. Dubai is launching their own state-backed cryptocurrency.
Right, everybody should do that. I made that 3 years ago, a video asking the state bank to make our own Bitcoin.
Yeah.
For Pakistan, because then the transaction cost and everything changes. It's like another form of currency, which they can do. But what he's saying, it's also a technology which can be used for doing other things.
So let's just say, Kamal, let's give a practical application, right? Let's just say you have this really great idea tomorrow for a new type of app, okay? But you want to do it in a more decentralized way. Similar what they call it a D app. So you want to, instead of you want this app to run on the Ethereum blockchain, and you have a token that's going to be a part of the app. It could be, who knows what that is, but you could write a smart contract, you could publish that smart contract, and and you could do all those things. So traditionally, if you wanted to raise money for a project, you'd have to go to Wall Street, and you could print stock, and you could issue that stock, and that stock can act like a security. Well, with this, instead of issuing stock, you could issue a token, and that token may not offer a return on investment, but it could be usable for services on the platform. And there's a lot of services that are completely virtual. in the sense that it's non-scarce goods, because there are some goods that are scarce, right? Like this food, it's physical and there's only so much of it. But with an app, it's a non-scarce good. So when you use the app, you need the tokens in order to use it. Every time the app provides the service, like even a Facebook, for example, Facebook is powered by advertising revenue, right? That's how Facebook makes money. Well, let's just say you had a really good idea for something that could be better than Facebook, okay? You could create a token, and you could sell that token to the investors. And those investors, instead of getting a return on their money, in the future will be able to use that token on your app to power the platform. So instead of the platform being powered by advertising revenue, the platform is being powered by this token, which has a representation of something, And the cool thing is that there will be platforms by which you can offer tokens that can act like securities, where you could actually offer them a return on their money. But you have to comply with all the laws in the individual jurisdictions in which you're operating. But there will be platforms out there which make it very easy for people to comply with all those laws. So that's what's so cool about this technology, is that it just gives people a lot of freedom, and that raising money is no longer restricted to a certain class of people who have access to banking.
Does that make sense? Little bit. It took me 2 years to understand.
Takes a little while.
I always follow what is the behind the scene. Like in Pakistan, when you are issuing a 1 rupee, so there is something behind in a state bank which buses it. Even if they print a lot of currency notes, their currency note will be devalued because there is a specific amount which is still fixed, which is not amount but gold. But it is
supposed to be like that, but it's not. Now I'll give you another example. So we go to your town, Mirpur Khas, we buy a plot, we make an apartment. The first apartment is sold for $100,000. Right? And now everybody hears about a $100,000 apartment. Now the second guy will say, I want to buy. Imagine there's only 10 apartments, right? The original cost is, say, $50,000, but now there are 10,000 buyers of 10 apartments. What happens now? The price of that $100,000 apartment goes to $1 million, but it's not backed by anything. And that is what is called the value of, that's the word I'm looking for. Well, do you know?
There is scarcity. So there's a scarce amount, and that's what's really interesting. So what would be the ideal situation, right? The ideal situation would be a gold standard, right? And in the U.S., under a gold standard, which Richard Nixon took the United States off of it, which was very controversial. But the gold standard, is not the best. Like, let's just say you want to start a war, and you don't want to have to tax people for it. Well, gold standard might not be so great for you because, the only way that you can raise money is through taxation. You can't just print it, So under a gold standard, we created a middle class in this country. Even if you're a widow washer, it didn't matter. You could support a family of 5 on a single income because the money was it was gold, so it created a massive amount of wealth, and people became very, very rich. We created a middle class under that standard. But now there have been people. So there's this guy. He spoke at the Libertarian Festival that I mentioned to. He was in jail for I don't know how many years, like a good chunk of his life he spent in jail because he created a gold-backed currency on the internet. And the guy had reserves for everything. He had reserves of all of his gold. The government, federal U.S. government came in and they came in with guns and they took all of this stuff and they said, you can't do it. You can't compete with us.
The purpose of government essentially is to have superior power over normal people. Just like kingdoms used to be, it's the same thing. It's not very different. What the Bitcoin will do, or not just the Bitcoin, blockchain will do, is democratize what internet did. It gives people the power to do. So now that's a separate issue what you're talking about, that it doesn't have any backing. Right. Backing is based on the value people put on it. So for example, this is a spoon. I say it's $100, you say it's $5, it doesn't matter. He comes in and pays $50. That's the value of the
It's subjective. It's what people feel that it's worth.
Right? It doesn't matter. So right now, he is issuing his coin for 15 cents a coin. And he will take it up to $1. So if anybody buys his coins right now, and who believes in it. Like I believe in this guy because I know him for so many years. I trust. Look at his energy level when he's talking about this. It's like woo. So I know he will make his very best to make it $1 worth. So everybody who buys it for 15 cents will gain how much money? They will make like 85 cents on the 15 cents, which is a lot of money, like 5 folds of money, right? For nothing, for having faith in his currency, right? So same thing.
But does it mean that everybody will start their own currency?
It does. It is happening right now. That's what the pride is. Right? That's what he said. But out of those 100 currencies that will start, only one will survive and 99 will close, which is fine, and that's called evolution.
Exactly. If something is useful, it will have some use for it. People will use it. If it's no longer useful, you know.
If
but we're in the early stages. We're in the Wild West right now.
Is it not
you
like
know?
those 15 cents? Those people will.
They might
have
suffer.
a loss of 15 cents.
That's why they're trusting him.
Yeah,
not the currency.
It's really important too on how you sell it. So, for example, I would never tell someone put your life savings into this at 15 cents, but I would tell people, buy $100 worth, and I'll tell them the reasons why we believe it's going to be worth more.
So that belief is not on the currency; it's on him. It's his. If he dies tomorrow, okay, I lost my money. But if, like, for example, people invest on their children, right? College tuition, university tuition. Why? Because they believe that one day that will multiply, their wealth will multiply based on that. It's not backed by anything. He could die tomorrow. It's not backed by anything.
And all this stuff is already being done on Wall Street. There are people who have secret, it's not secret knowledge, but like your father, I met some fellow, I don't come from a very wealthy family, but I know people I've met, I grew up in the U.S. I've been surrounded by extremely rich people my whole life, even though I don't come from money. But there are some people, their father opened them up a trading account when they were just a kid and put $100,000 in it. There's some people who get that experience early on. There are some people who don't have that father to put the $100,000 in the trading account, but they are hungry for knowledge, and they're hungry to be able to make their life better and improve their living conditions. So with this technology, it's no longer just restricted. Just like the internet has opened up things for so many people, this technology allows regular people to create financial instruments, allows regular people to do things like that. And
let me give. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Another example. Today, the Google stock is $1,400 a stock, one stock. If tomorrow Sergey Brin and what's the other guy's name?
Larry Page.
Larry Page die, and what's his name? The chairman.
What's that?
You want tea?
I ordered another one, but I don't know why is he not getting. If three of them die, the price of the Google market will crash by 50% overnight. What's it backed by? Nothing. It's the trust which people been in the stock. It's like stock.
Yeah. And then if someone takes over the company and does a really good job, it will go up again.
It will go up again. But till that time, the price will remain low because it's not the company the people trust. Remember, on the way over, I was telling you, it's not the technology which has the value. It's the idea and the people who are doing that technology which has the value. So now comes to my question, the second question. There are a lot of people who trust me. There's a lot of following I have, right? Imran Khan has a following. I have a following. Or a singer, say Madonna launches a coin. She can. And she will make a lot of money. Because of her fan, or like Oprah Winfrey can launch a coin. And they will make overnight billions of dollars. But they have to have the right strategy towards it. And they have to have the right understanding towards it. And what would they do with the coin? Not just for the sake of it. You have to have a purpose. You have to give it a story in order for it to be successful. So last time we met a month ago, we discussed we will launch a Rihan coin. He will make it for us. The question is, what will people do with it? I still don't know.
Yeah.
So there's where your intellect comes in, and I don't want to make money off it. I want the people who follow me to take advantage of it somehow, so they make money off it, or they use it somehow, or like it could be a replacement for PayPal. It could do something.
Or incentivize people for making friends. It could be whatever you wanted to do. Whereas you currently give away laptops. It could be a ledger for keeping track of who gets laptops. Or however. It could be many different things. But yeah.
So for example,
We can start up this currency, but how do we make other vendors or other
it doesn't matter.
to accept this?
It doesn't matter what he said. Just look, if you make right now, if you make 500 friends and do 10 interviews, you get a free laptop, right? but there is no way to measure it. So he's saying instead of giving them the land,
Exactly.
they can. No, I can accept it myself even to start off with. It doesn't.
Exactly.
It's a game.
You create a rule that says every time you have a confirmed friend request, meaning you verify that that's a real person, maybe you verify through a photo ID, maybe you verify through like someone physically calling them and say, are you a real person?
That's an example
You know?
he's talking about.
And I'm not saying this is the right solution, but I'm just saying, like, let's just say you have proof of friend request. Not proof of actual contact. So two people added each other on Facebook, and now that's a provable event that took place. And we say, well, when a provable event comes into place, you're incentivized by getting a token. And then once you earn so many tokens, you can redeem that for a laptop or something. You know, it could be a very small market, and it could be only a certain amount of people using it, but it's still an economy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Or even DIDX, for example, you issue the points. Like for example, when you an airline issues you a point, you have been a travel agent, so you know how it goes. So you have 10,000 miles, you can only use it within the airlines. It's like giving 10% discount, but it's still an incentive, and the value can still go up. And there's an unofficial market going on of the miles. Even now, people buy and sell miles.
Yeah.
There's a whole economy around the miles. It's a totally different planet.
Exactly. So DIDX customers, you can reward them for loyalty. So like once you've been a customer for more than 1 year, you earn this many points. After you've
And
been
you
a
can
customer
come
for
and take
2
these
years.
toys from us. You can get a free Alexa, you can get a discount from us, or you can buy more DIDs from us. But it's still an incentive. Like, remember the video I was showing you on the way? She was buying that stuff, as she was saying, because there were only coupons which were giving a 10% discount. That's the only reason she was addicted.
Yeah.
People buy because they are getting a discount. They feel like, oh my god, this is amazing. I'm getting a really good deal. They don't need it, but they buy it. So it's more sociology than anything else. So we need to understand how our coin can be launched, and what should it do.
And we have people like Mark Zuckerberg who talk about things like basic income, where in the future people won't necessarily, think about a world where there's a massive abundance of food, very different, maybe than the world we live in now, but, it's conceivable to think there should be a time period where people's basic needs are taken care of, and they spend their time like, people like Mark Zuckerberg say everybody gets a basic income, and maybe he just wants us online clicking their ads, or I don't know what it is, but it's conceivable to think that there are other values that are more important. So you can have tokens that are purely for entertainment purposes, and if it entertains people, that is something of value.
For your own private club.
Yeah. So there's all different types of things that are happening, and that's what this BAT token is about, apparently. It was created by the Firefox guys. They envision kind of a future where people aren't incentivized by advertising, and they're building a browser which has its own token built into it. And let's see what happens with it. Maybe it's going to be successful. Maybe it's not going to be successful. But we'll certainly find out.
Thank you, sister.
It's an interesting world.
Now, do you have any questions regarding the technology?
How on the programming side, what do we need to do?
Yeah, well, the cool thing is there's lots of examples. If you go to a website called Open Zeppelin, you can see lots of open source examples of smart contracts. So there's lots of smart contracts that are already there, and you just copy one.
It's like an encyclopedia of Bitcoin and everything.
You can copy someone else's contract and make a few changes to it.
Make it fit what you're going to do.
Exactly.
And then just make it fit what you're going to do.
Exactly. You look at a contract that's out there and say, oh, this looks like it fits, what our application, and you can make some changes to it.
No questions?
I have to read a lot, then I
Kamal
There's
Maybe you're a
probably
visual
simulations somewhere where people can
understander,
play,
but
pretend they're doing it.
Yeah, there's
a
a-
game,
was able to
mobile
understand
app.
when I met him.
There's a sandbox. There's a dev network,
He
a
would
test
talk, I
net.
wouldn't understand.
So you
Then
can
I
test
came
your
to his
smart
house,
contracts on the
stayed
test
3
net
days.
with fake money, basically.
Then
Yeah.
I understood it. Only then I was like, wow, that's so simple. But
Yeah.
nobody explains.
Suzanne had a good question, by the way, Kamal. She
What
asked
is it?
about like a test net or development where you could make contracts that are testing without real money. So you can do that on Ethereum. There's a test net, and you can make a contract and use fake Ethereum. So this way you're not wagering real money when you play around.
That's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
Not read. do it.
Exactly, not redo it. Yeah,
What did
she's
we
right.
What did we discuss? Well, again, we're all different kinds of learners.
Yeah.
So
I
he
know.
loves to read.
He loves to
even though
read,
he
yeah.
likes to read.
I do, but I understand I would learn
Mm-hmm.
faster by doing it.
Yeah.
This
No,
is-
I felt that I am always bound to the previous things. So then to come out and think, so always behind the scene I am feeling like I am feeling that in start I was feeling that Bitcoin is like MLM.
Yeah.
It's not
No,
MLM.
it's totally
No.
different.
Yeah,
Nothing.
but I mean I am always bound.
He's
to
a
the
skeptic.
backside.
He's a smart guy.
Follow us.
Because you're smart, you're a skeptic,
Yeah.
and you should be
Yeah,
skeptical.
cautious.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
You
there's
don't
nothing
just
wrong
click
with
on a link because you see it. You hold your mouse over to see where it's going to go.
Right. Exactly.
No, that's very important.
See? Yeah.
Yeah, because it is even possible you got a bank link, but it is going to another site.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's very important. So now, do you remember, Ben, what we discussed about Rihan Coin and what should it do? Because
Yeah.
I said I'll pay you and do it.
Yeah, we did.
One.
And
We have one more.
So,
I want one, but there should be tea little less. It's too much tea.
What do you
it
mean?
was,
Do you want one?
I want
Sure.
one. I said I
Yeah,
wanted.
two peas. You want?
I said I wanted one.
Finally, she wants one.
well, I think how we ended that was that we should really do some research about it. But we could, we could accelerate the process and just come up with something and put it out there and see what happens.
I would say go ahead and create a coin
Yeah.
which people can buy
Okay.
1 rupee versus a coin.
Okay. Yeah.
To
Start with
start
1
out with.
rupee. Sure.
And then we use it on our own product.
Yeah.
We can use it on DID.
Yeah, accepted at the
Why
idea.
I am asking you this question is how I will promote it. I mean, it's okay. We sell it at 1 rupee. But later on, we have to make its worth. When you create worth,
You don't have
it
to do
will start
anything. That's the whole idea. You don't do anything. It does it.
Yeah, let's let the market determine the value
It's a
of
market.
it. Yeah, we're going to let supply and demand
There would
determine
be
it.
some factors on which the
No,
market.
Yeah.
it's a demand.
Well,
It's a
you can
demand
determine
and
what the
supply.
rate of acceptance will be too, but you might want to just base that. It's a learning process, so you can always fine tune things later.
And you can close it.
Yeah.
End of the day, if
See
you
how
don't
it
like
works.
it, you close it.
Experimentation,
It's nothing wrong with closing a business. There's nothing wrong in failing.
especially if you learn something.
There's nothing wrong in failing. That's the big
No,
challenge.
but
See,
all
that's where your
people-
problem is.
All people who purchase at 1 rupee, still that 1
They
rupee
know that
matters.
they might fail. It's a risk.
Exactly. You give them the proper information. It's just like
Yeah.
Bit
That's
Plus.
why I'm
So
trying. And look, any business, you
Yeah.
start building a building. What if the guy who started building the building dies? The whole project dies.
but you tell people the
You don't
negatives.
tell them I'm
know?
going to die.
Ahead of time, yeah.
So like if
Yeah.
people ask me, like sometimes with our people who bought our token for Bit Plus, they ask, well, what are some of the negatives? What are some of the bad things about your
Thank you,
project,
Father.
right?
You rock.
One of the bad things about our project that we're doing with Bit Plus is it's a point of sale system. So because it's a point of sale system and we have to accept traditional credit cards, we have to deal with some really crappy APIs. So for example, to do this EVM, which is the chip and pin cards, we want to be able to accept chip and pin. Right now we only have a magnetic reader, okay? So our merchants, if they want to be able to do accept chip and pin, we're not certified. We haven't developed a solution for it, and we're not certified either. It's actually almost a 6-month process to do that. So we can't spend we have to spend a lot of development resources dealing with merchant processing APIs that are just very antiquated